Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we delve into a story about love, dreams, and the harsh realities that can sometimes shatter them in the most unexpected moments. Sometimes the cruelest truths are whispered in the quiet moments we mistake for happiness. On the night meant to mark the beginning of everything she had ever dreamed of, Sophia Bennett discovered a betrayal that would shatter her to the core. A pregnant bride, a picture-perfect celebration, and a devastating secret all unfolding behind the gilded walls of her wedding. Sophia Bennett, a 31-year-old interior designer, believed she had finally stepped into her dream. A grand celebration, a charismatic billionaire groom, and the sweet promise of forever. Little did she know, everything she had hoped for was on the verge of collapsing in a single, devastating moment. As she carried their unborn child, her heart full of joy and anticipation, one shocking discovery on the very night of her vows would change her life forever. Love, betrayal, and deep heartbreak would collide behind the closed doors of an opulent European estate. The question lingered. Would she survive the heartbreak or be broken completely? Sophia had always envisioned a fairy tale wedding since childhood, twirling in front of the mirror in her grandmother's Parisian apartment, a pillowcase over her head, pretending to be a bride. She dreamed of a day adorned with radiant smiles, elegant music, and dazzling lights. She imagined white gardenias and orchids covering every surface, candles flickering in delicate crystal holders, and her father walking her down a long marble aisle while those dearest to her watched her take the most important steps of her life. In many ways, that dream unfolded just as she imagined. The ceremony took place at the historic Villa Montclair in the hills of southern France, a private estate surrounded by olive groves and centuries-old architecture that had been transformed into a luxury event venue. Her fiancé, Julien Moreau, had spared no expense. The 36-year-old heir to the Moreau International Holdings, renowned for luxury developments across Europe and the Middle East, had always promised Sophia a life where every dream could be made real with a single word, and that was exactly what he delivered. On that golden afternoon, the ceremony site was a floral masterpiece. A cascade of ivory tulips, cream peonies, and fragrant roses lining the aisle, while an arch of fairy lights sparkled overhead. The soft sound of a harp floated on the Mediterranean breeze as Sophia's father, Edmund Bennett, walked her slowly down the aisle, tears forming at the corners of his eyes. Around them, guests sniffled behind delicately embroidered handkerchiefs. Julien waited at the altar, tall and poised. He wore a tailored tuxedo that fit his lean, athletic build to perfection. His dark brown hair gleamed under the sun, meticulously styled. When his gaze met Sophia's, a soft smile lit up his face, and for a moment, the entire world fell away, leaving only the two of them. In the front row, Sophia's mother, Claudine Bennett, dabbed at her teary eyes, beaming with pride at her daughter. On the groom's side, Julien's mother, Celeste Moreau, maintained an elegant composure, though one could see the unmistakable pride shining in her eyes. Beside her sat his father, Lucien Moreau, who offered a stoic but approving nod as his son prepared to exchange vows. Celeste's gloved hands clutched a delicate lace handkerchief, an heirloom passed down through generations of Moreau women, though her fingers trembled slightly, betraying an emotion far deeper than her poised expression allowed. Sophia's ivory gown had been custom designed by a close friend of the family, a renowned couturier who had dressed some of Europe's most celebrated actresses. Delicate lace traced intricate patterns across her bodice, and the train cascaded behind her like a rippling sea of white silk. Very few knew she was already several weeks pregnant. Her small bump was cleverly hidden by the thoughtful cut of her gown. Although they had initially planned to wait, the pregnancy hadn't been an unwelcome surprise. Sophia saw it as the perfect start to their new life, and Julien had sworn he was overjoyed about the child. Still, in fleeting moments, she had caught a strange distance in his eyes when they spoke of the baby, as if his joy flickered, guarded behind a mask. She had pushed the thought away, blaming nerves. As she approached the officiant, Father Alphonse Dubois, a longtime family friend, he smiled warmly. A profound hush fell over the gathering. Even the birds in the surrounding cypress trees seemed to pause in reverence. When Sophia reached Julian, he took her hands in his. She felt the comforting warmth of his fingers, and for a brief second, her mind wandered back to the day she first realized she loved him. It had been years ago in her modest Rome apartment, when he'd shown up unannounced, arms full of groceries, determined to cook her a birthday dinner. He'd burned nearly everything, and they had laughed until their sides ached. In that moment, she knew she was in love. But now, standing in front of him in her wedding gown, that memory felt distant, almost fragile. Was it still real, or had it become something she clung to out of hope? Dearly beloved, Father Alphonse's voice echoed, beginning the formalities, calling everyone to witness the union of Sophia Bennett and Julian Morrow. Sophia glanced around, soaking in the golden sunlight, the shimmer of the chandeliers, and the hushed excitement that rippled through the air. Felt like a dream. But in that quiet, she failed to notice the sidelong glances from a woman in a pale blue gown seated near the back, or the subtle tension tugging at the corners of Julian's otherwise confident smile. Had she seen those signs sooner, the tightness in his jaw, the flicker of unease in his eyes when he looked toward the crowd, perhaps she could have braced her heart for what was to come. The vows were exchanged in deeply personal speeches that left guests wiping tears or smiling uncontrollably. Julian's voice, calm and sincere, rang out as he pledged his loyalty and unwavering love to Sophia. I vow to protect you, to honor you, and to build a family with you, a family that will stand as a testament to the love we share, he said, gently squeezing her hands. Sophia's heart swelled. When it was her turn, Sophia's voice trembled as she began her vows. She promised to love Julian through every storm and every sunshine that life would bring their way, to walk hand in hand beside him, and to nurture the tiny seed of love that was already blossoming inside her. She felt a faint movement, perhaps her imagination or a flutter from the little life she carried. It felt like an affirmation, as though the child within her was pledging loyalty too. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back, determined to remember this moment not just with her heart, but with perfect clarity. A wave of thunderous applause followed. They exchanged rings, sealing their union with a tender kiss. Cameras flashed from every direction, capturing a moment that would soon grace tabloid covers. The heir to the Morrow fortune had married the beautiful yet humble Sophia Bennett, a Cinderella story for the modern age, as the gossip columns would soon proclaim. But beneath the dazzle of fairy lights and designer gowns, something flickered, an invisible ripple in Sophia's joy that she couldn't quite explain. After the ceremony, guests were ushered into a grand ballroom draped in luxury. Towering floral arrangements crowned each table, while a string quartet in the corner set a romantic tone. Waiters glided across the polished marble floor, offering gourmet dishes that Julian and Sophia had carefully selected weeks earlier. Crystal chandeliers hung like suspended stars overhead. In one corner, a group of Julian's business associates raised their glasses, offering heartfelt toasts, praising his strategic brilliance and vision. They joked about him surrendering his bachelorhood, but Sophia noticed they always followed their teasing with warm smiles directed toward her, acknowledging in their own way that Julian was a lucky man. Still, she caught the occasional glance exchanged between two of them, quick, unreadable, just enough to make her wonder what she wasn't being told. Between dances, Sophia's best friend, Isabel Martins, pulled her aside, absolutely glowing with excitement. This is everything we dreamed of back in university, isn't it? You're radiant, and that gown. People can't stop talking about how you and Julian look like royalty. Sophia laughed softly but felt a sudden wave of nausea that had nothing to do with excitement. Her pregnancy was still in its fragile early stages, and she was being cautious not to draw attention. Politely, she excused herself to find a quiet corner. As she stepped away from the swirling crowd, that's when she saw the woman in blue again, the same one from the ceremony, standing near a tall glass window overlooking the garden. Their eyes met for a brief second before the woman turned away, as if she'd been caught watching. There was something oddly deliberate in the way she moved, poised, aware of being seen, yet unbothered. Sophia didn't think much of it at first. There were so many unfamiliar faces, probably just another business associate of Julian's or perhaps someone's guest. Still, something about the woman's expression lingered in Sophia's mind. There was a subtle sense of purpose in her gaze, almost as if she held a secret. Not malice, not jealousy, something colder, more calculating. But Sophia pushed the thought aside, choosing instead to focus on the joy and beauty of the day. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. She couldn't afford to dwell on unsettling strangers. After all, who in their right mind would fixate on a stranger during their own wedding reception? Later that evening, as the dancing slowed and the older guests began to leave, the younger crowd moved the celebration outdoors. Twinkling lights hung between tall cypress trees. The string quartet gave way to a DJ, and a light breeze made the summer night feel even more magical. Sophia and Julian drifted from group to group, chatting with lingering guests, receiving congratulations, and posing for countless photos. Laughter came easily, but Sophia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, like a second presence hovering just beyond the edge of her vision. At one point, Julian was pulled aside by Matthew Laurent, the wedding planner Sophia had personally chosen for his flawless reputation and attention to detail. He was discussing a few last-minute adjustments to their honeymoon itinerary. Left alone, Sophia wandered toward a tall stone fountain nestled in a quiet corner of the garden. The gentle sound of water splashing provided a calming break from the music and conversation. The sound seemed to muffle the world for a moment, as if time paused just for her. Just as she was about to slip inside to change into her after-party dress, she saw the woman in the pale blue gown again. She stood across the lawn, partially concealed behind the trunk of a wide cypress tree. This time, their eyes locked for longer than a second, and a chill crept into Sophia's stomach. There was something in the woman's expression, something that felt both sorrowful and triumphant. It wasn't a passive look. It was intentional, measured, as if the woman had been waiting for her all along. Before Sophia could take a step toward her, Julian reappeared, his face flushed from dancing, his tie loosened casually around his neck. "Hey!" he said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. He pressed a quick kiss to her temple, then paused, noticing the slight furrow in her brow. "Is everything okay?" Sophia opened her mouth to say something but hesitated. She glanced back toward the tree, but the woman was gone. Not just moved, gone, as if she had never been there at all. "I'm fine," she said softly. "It's just been a long day, I guess. I'm a little tired." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "It has been," he admitted. "Let's say our final goodbyes and slip away." They returned to the heart of the reception, where they were met with cheers from lively groomsmen and giggling bridesmaids. The last hour of the celebration passed in a warm blur of toasts, embraces, and tearful goodbyes. Sophia did her best to push away the lingering discomfort in her chest. She told herself it meant nothing, but her instincts whispered otherwise. Finally came the send-off, a shower of rose petals as Sophia and Julian made their way toward the car. Henry, an older chauffeur in a crisp black suit, opened the door of a vintage silver Rolls-Royce adorned with a just married sign and tin cans trailing behind. They waved goodbye until the glowing villa behind them disappeared from view. As Sophia leaned back into the leather seat, she told herself the strange feeling had only been wedding day nerves. Their first night together as husband and wife would be spent at one of the Morrow family's most exclusive properties. A private seaside villa perched high on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. Julian had surprised her with this location just for tonight. He'd said, "Tomorrow, we'll board the jet to our real honeymoon destination in the Maldives. But for now, I want to watch the sun rise over the water with my wife." The villa was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the endless sea like a moving canvas. White gauzy curtains billowed in the salty breeze, and beyond them, waves crashed rhythmically against the jagged rocks below. Sophia felt her heart melt at the sheer romance of it all. The air smelled of jasmine and sea salt, and for a second, she imagined this place as a fairy tale cliffside castle, hers for one perfect night. Even a mild wave of nausea from her early pregnancy couldn't spoil the wonder of the moment. After Henry dropped them off with a warm tip of his cap, Julian led her inside. They wandered through the villa hand in hand, discovering cozy stone fireplaces, plush velvet sofas, and charming antique decor. In the kitchen, Sophia spotted a large gift basket filled with chocolates, champagne, and fresh strawberries, a wedding gift from Julian's mother, Celeste. Tied to it was a handwritten note in Celeste's flowing cursive. "May this night mark the beginning of something eternal." It gave Sophia a strange pause, but she brushed it off. Sophia stepped out onto the balcony, allowing the crisp night air to kiss her skin. The moonlight danced across the water like a blanket of glittering diamonds. She closed her eyes, resting a hand on her belly. "How perfect is this moment," she thought. "I can't believe how lucky I am." But even as the words formed, a tiny flicker of unease whispered through her, so faint it could have been the wind. Julian joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. They stood in silence for a few long seconds, letting the soothing sound of waves fill the space between them. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we'll be flying off to the Maldives. No meetings, no interruptions. Just you, me, and paradise." She turned her face toward his. "I can't wait," she whispered, rising on tiptoe to kiss him gently. He deepened the kiss just slightly, a note of urgency in it, as if trying to anchor something slipping away. They stepped back inside, laughter echoing through the marble halls as Julian lifted her into his arms and carried her toward the bedroom. Rose petals were scattered across the bed, the soft glow of candles lighting the entire room with a dreamy warmth. Everything felt as it should, magical, passionate, new. But once again, a small knot tightened in Sophia's stomach. She thought of the woman in the blue dress. Who was she? Why had she looked so intensely at them? For a fleeting moment, Sophia considered bringing it up to Julian. Maybe he recognized her. Perhaps she was someone from his past, an ex or a guest with misplaced emotions, someone who had come to disrupt their day, someone who had unfinished business. But as she looked into Julian's eyes, wide with affection and anticipation, she pushed the thought away. Tonight should be about them, not shadows, not suspicions, not ghosts from another life. Sophia let the questions slip away as they sank into each other's arms, the outside world slowly melting into the background. Late into the night, as Sophia drifted into a peaceful sleep curled against Julian's chest, she felt safe. A soft breeze from the open balcony door kept the room airy, while patches of moonlight shimmered across the stone floor. Suddenly, the shrill ring of Julian's phone pierced the silence, jolting her awake. Her body tensed instinctively, like a violin string pulled taut. Julian groaned, reaching across the nightstand to find his phone. Sophia, still half asleep, her eyes barely opened, saw the faint glow of the screen. One word flashed on the caller ID. "Clarice." "Who is it?" she murmured. "Just a business associate," Julian replied quickly, already pressing the phone to his ear as he slipped out of bed and walked onto the balcony. His voice was too fast, too rehearsed. Her heart was racing, not with suspicion at first, but from the abrupt awakening. Still, a flicker of worry followed close behind. A business call at nearly 2 o'clock in the morning? She tried to reason with herself. He was, after all, a billionaire overseeing projects around the world. Maybe it was just a matter of time zones. Deals don't sleep, especially at that level, right? And yet, the memory of the woman in the blue dress floated back into her mind, uninvited the way she'd stared, not with curiosity, but with some tea. In closer to possession. Sophia sat up slightly, propping herself on her elbows, straining to hear. Julian's voice was low, urgent, not angry exactly, but tense in a way she didn't recognize. She swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry. She flipped on the small lamp at her bedside, its warm light revealing the delicate swirl of rose petals across the floor. This was supposed to be their wedding night, the night she would remember for the rest of her life. Why was he handling business calls? After what felt like an eternity, Julian returned. His expression was controlled, but the tightness around his mouth betrayed something else. He attempted a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Work emergency?" she asked softly. He nodded, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Yes, A new development project in London. There are some issues. The investors are, well, restless. Sophia studied him carefully. She wanted so badly to believe him. He was her husband now, the man who had sworn to cherish her, and the father of the life growing inside her. But something about his body language, the way he avoided eye contact, the way he held his phone like a shield, felt off. It wasn't just business stress. It was guilt. She could feel it radiating from his skin like heat. She reached out and rested a hand gently on his shoulder. Can it wait until morning? We're leaving for our honeymoon. He hesitated, eyes still fixed on the glowing phone in his hand, as though expecting it to ring again. Yeah, he said finally, forcing another smile. I'll handle it in the morning. Don't worry. Sophia tried to accept it. She lay back down, allowing Julian to curl around her once more. But as she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the gnawing sense that their perfect day had been marked, tainted by something lurking just out of sight, waiting to strike a splinter beneath the surface of a dream. By the time morning light filtered softly through the villa's white linen curtains, Sophia awoke alone. She rubbed her eyes and noticed Julian was already gone. The balcony doors were open, letting the scent of the salty Mediterranean air waft through the room. The antique clock on the nightstand read 8:12 a.m. They were scheduled to leave for the airport at noon. Padding barefoot into the living room, she found Julian pacing slowly back and forth, a phone pressed to his ear. He was half-dressed, just slacks and an open-collar shirt, his hair still damp from a quick shower. Yes, Clarice, I understand that, but we agreed this wouldn't go public, she heard him say in a hushed but urgent tone. His voice cracked slightly on the word, public, like a man trying to hold too many truths inside one breath. Sophia froze in the hallway. Clarice, the same name that had flashed on his phone the night before. Her stomach tightened. What had started as a flicker of doubt now began to cloud her thoughts with dread. Her heartbeat thundered, and an uncomfortable heat rose into her cheeks. Every instinct in her body screamed that something wasn't right, and she hated that she didn't know what. Julian turned suddenly, realizing she was there. He ended the call quickly and flashed an overly casual smile. Hey, he said too brightly. You're up. Good morning, Mrs. Morrow. He opened his arms as if expecting her to walk into them, but Sophia didn't move. She fixed her gaze on him. Julian. Who is Clarice? He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then gave a shrug that felt forced. She's just an important associate. She's heavily involved in several of my European ventures. Things are a bit chaotic right now with some key deals falling through. That's all. He said it quickly, like someone reading from a script. She needs to talk to you at odd hours. Right after our wedding? Sophia asked, her tone deceptively calm. Julian gave a short laugh that sounded hollow. Time zones, business pressures, you know how it is. I'm sorry if it woke you. I didn't want to disturb you. His eyes flicked toward the phone still clutched in his hand. Sophia noticed the movement, noticed the anxiety flickering in his otherwise composed expression. The mask was slipping, and what lay underneath wasn't certainty. It was fear. She pressed her lips together. She wanted to trust him, she really did. This was her husband, the man she had married not even 24 hours earlier, the father of the child growing inside her. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe this was just business. All right, she said at last, trying to sound nonchalant. Let me shower and pack. Still, a wave of disappointment settled over her. She had imagined a romantic morning, breakfast on the cliffside terrace, maybe barefoot dancing to soft music. Instead, it was starting with vague phone calls and a name that stirred knots in her stomach, a name that refused to let go. She turned and walked slowly back toward the bedroom, resisting the powerful urge to grab his phone and scroll through it for answers. Back in the bedroom, Sophia took her time getting ready. She stood under the warm cascade of the shower, letting the water wash over her face and shoulders. One hand moved instinctively to her belly. We're okay, she whispered gently, as if speaking directly to her unborn child. Mommy's just a little worried, but everything's going to be fine. After dressing in a soft linen sundress, Sophia began gathering her things for the trip, but her mind kept circling back to Julian's tense conversation on the phone. It looped in her thoughts like a song stuck on repeat, the hushed tone, the name he didn't want her to hear, the way his jaw had clenched. She nearly jumped when a gentle knock sounded at the bedroom door. "May I come in?" Julian asked quietly from the other side. She opened the door, stepping aside to let him in. He looked subdued, almost remorseful. "I'm sorry," he said, placing his hands lightly on her shoulders. "I know it's not ideal talking about work stuff on our wedding night." Sophia let out a slow, tired sigh. "I know your work is important to you, Julian. It's not the kind of start I imagined for our marriage." Her voice trembled slightly, a crack beneath the calm. His expression softened. "Once we're in the Maldives, I swear, no more calls, no more late-night interruptions, just us and the baby. I promise." He leaned in and pressed a kiss to her cheek. "You're my priority." She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to let herself believe him. She needed to. It was the vow she had made at the altar, to stand by him in trust and faith, for better or worse. "Okay," she murmured, but even as she said it, the word felt thin, fragile, like a thread holding something unraveling. They finished packing and headed for the airport in a sleek black limousine. Julian sat beside her, but his attention seemed elsewhere, constantly flicking toward his phone, even though it remained silent. Sophia stared out the tinted windows, watching the French countryside blur by. She half listened as Julian murmured about flight schedules and first-class lounges. She wanted so badly to feel the thrill of it again, the honeymoon, the tropical escape, the promise of turquoise waters and candlelit dinners by the sea, the joy of newlywed life. But joy doesn't thrive in doubt, and doubt was now riding with them like a silent third passenger. But as they neared the airport, Julian's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, his face tightened. Then, with visible reluctance, he answered the call. "I'm sorry," he mouthed to Sophia as he turned away. "Yes, Clarice," he said quietly. Sophia's heart clenched. For the next few minutes, she heard only snippets of his muffled voice. Words like scandal, manage, and urgent floated through the quiet interior of the limo. The longer the call went on, the paler Julian became. When he finally ended the call, his knuckles were white from gripping the phone too tightly. He didn't look like a man handling a business crisis. He looked like a man being cornered by consequences. He turned to Sophia, eyes clouded with tension. "I have to make a stop. The flight to the Maldives will have to wait." "What? Julian, what's going on?" He exhaled shakily, trying to compose himself. "Clarice discovered something. An imminent crisis with some of our biggest investors. They're threatening to pull out if I don't address this immediately. I could lose everything. It would sink one of my largest developments. I need to go into the office and put out this fire." Julian's voice was tense, urgent. He looked at Sophia, searching her expression. "I promise it'll only be a few hours." Sophia stared at him, conflicted. "You're canceling our honeymoon flight? The day after our wedding?" She tried to sound calm, but the hurt in her voice was unmistakable. "I'm rescheduling, not canceling," Julian said quickly. "We'll still go, just a little later." "I'm sorry, Sophia, but I can't ignore this. My father's already furious, and if we lose these investors..." She held up a hand, cutting him off gently. She understood, or at least she tried to. The Moro Empire didn't run itself, and Julian bore the weight of unimaginable responsibility. "Fine," she said at last. "Let's just go to your office. Deal with whatever's happening. But we're getting on that plane tonight." He nodded, relief softening his features. "Thank you for understanding." The limo changed direction, heading toward Moro International's glass-clad headquarters, a towering skyscraper in the heart of Monaco. As they pulled up, a wave of dread and disappointment settled over Sophia. She should have been stepping onto a private jet, hand in hand with her new husband, giddy for their island getaway. Instead, she was walking into a corporate lobby, surrounded by marble floors and hushed voices. Julian led her to a private elevator that rose smoothly to the top floor. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and subtle cologne. Modern art adorned the walls, and high-level executives moved with practiced precision through the corridors. At the end of the hall, Julian turned to Sophia. "Wait here in my office," he said gently, guiding her toward a sleek door with his name engraved on a brushed steel plaque. "I'll just be a few minutes. I need to meet Clarice and the team in the conference room." She nodded wordlessly and stepped inside his expansive corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a stunning view of the marina below. On one side sat a plush, minimalist couch. On the other, an imposing desk with an array of monitors. The space radiated wealth and control. Sophia lowered herself onto the couch, crossing her arms tightly across her chest. A part of her wanted to follow Julian down the hallway to meet this mysterious Clarice and judge for herself, but she fought the urge. She wouldn't seem insecure. She had to trust him. That's what wives do. Minutes passed. 5, then 10, 15. She fidgeted, glancing at the cityscape beyond the windows. The longer she sat alone, the heavier her thoughts became. She even considered calling her mother, Claudine, just to say hello. But how could she explain she wasn't on the jet, wasn't in the Maldives? She had promised to send a photo from the plane, eyes glowing, champagne in hand. Then, as if summoned by her spiraling thoughts, the office door clicked open. A tall woman entered. She wore a fitted black pencil skirt and a crisp white blouse. Her dark hair was slicked back into a tight chignon, revealing a sharp, elegant face. She locked eyes with Sophia, and Sophia's heart stuttered. She recognized that face from the wedding, that unnerving presence, that gaze that lingered too long. "You!" Her voice faltered. "Were you at our wedding yesterday?" The woman's expression flickered, momentary surprise shifting quickly into something more composed, practiced. "I was," she replied smoothly. "I'm Clarice Duval." She extended a hand, her voice cool, controlled. "I work closely with Julian on several international ventures." Sophia hesitated. Something inside her recoiled at the thought of touching this woman, but she forced herself to be polite. She took the hand briefly. Clarice's grip was firm, cold, confident, not the handshake of a stranger. It was the kind you gave to claim territory. "I see. Julian told me you're a business associate," Sophia said. Clarice's lips curved into a smile, though it never reached her eyes. "Indeed. I'm sorry if I startled you at the wedding. I needed to speak with Julian about an urgent matter. I was invited by one of his colleagues. Small world, isn't it?" Her gaze dropped for the briefest second to Sophia's belly, then returned to her face. "Congratulations, by the way." Sophia's mind reeled. Why had Julian let this woman, someone who clearly unsettled him, attend their wedding? Or had she come uninvited? 1,000 questions swirled. Her intuition screamed, but she had no facts, just a growing ache behind her ribs. "Thank you," she said quietly, barely above a whisper. "Is the crisis resolved? We're supposed to be on our honeymoon." Clarice's smile twitched slightly. "Julian's working on it now. Big deals come with big responsibilities, as I'm sure you understand." There was an edge to her voice, sugar-coated and sharp. There was something in her tone that made Sophia bristle, as though Clarice were implying she wouldn't understand the complexity of high-stakes international business. "Right," Sophia replied, forcing a nod. She straightened her posture. "Well, I'm sure Julian can handle whatever comes his way." Her voice held firm, but her spine tensed. This wasn't small talk. It was a test. Clarice arched an eyebrow. For a beat, the air between them filled with quiet tension. Sophia found herself taking in Clarice's appearance. Flawless makeup, though a faint smudge of lipstick sat slightly askew, and a subtle mark near her collar, a bruise, a crease from something more intimate. The implication hit her like ice down her back. Before Sophia could dwell on it further, the office door opened. Julian stepped in, stopping short when he saw the two women together. A flash of alarm crossed his face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Clarice," he said tightly, I told you I'd come find you. Why are you here? I just wanted to make sure everything was all right, Clarice replied smoothly. I saw your lovely wife was waiting alone, so I introduced myself. No harm done, I hope, Clarice said with a smooth smile. Julian's jaw tightened slightly. We'll continue in the conference room. He turned to Sophia, offering a forced smile. I'm sorry, but would you mind waiting here a bit longer? She nodded, though her insides twisted. He gestured for Clarice to follow him out. As she walked past, Clarice's eyes flicked toward Julian, and something passed between them. Something unreadable but cold. Something shared. Something Sophia wasn't meant to see. Pity? Triumph? Whatever it was, it made Sophia's blood run cold. The door clicked shut behind them. Alone again, Sophia stood frozen, a knot of anger and fear swelling in her chest. That woman's presence wasn't random. There was something deeper going on. Something that threatened the fragile foundation of her brand new marriage. It was like watching cracks form beneath glass, each one spider webbing faster than she could stop. She took a shaky step toward Julian's desk, nerves buzzing beneath her skin. His phone lay there, the screen dark. For a moment, she considered opening it, digging through emails, messages, anything that might explain this. But guilt surged up like a wall. She couldn't. Not yet. If she crossed that line, she wouldn't be able to return to trust, not even the illusion of it. Instead, she paced the room, chewing on her lip as the minutes dragged by. 5, 10, 30. Nearly an hour passed before the door finally opened and Julian returned, his shoulders heavy with stress. He didn't look her in the eyes. The air that followed him into the room felt colder. We need to push the flight until tomorrow, he said quietly. Sophia's heart dropped. Julian, you promised we'd leave tonight. I know, he replied, running a hand through his hair. But this is bigger than I expected. I need more time to lock in the investors. It's not just about my father's company anymore. Thousands of jobs are tied to this. If it collapses, it'll be a disaster for everyone. Just one more day, Sophia, please. She stared at him, tears stinging behind her eyes. Her voice trembled despite her best efforts to sound steady. Are you sure it's just about the investors? He paused. His gaze finally met hers, and for a second, something unreadable flickered there. Something heavy. Something that wanted to confess but didn't. Yes, it is, he said softly. I promise. Just trust me. Against her better judgment, she nodded slowly. All right, Julian. One more day. The words left her mouth, but her heart recoiled. He stepped forward, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You won't regret this. I'll fix it. Then we'll go on our dream honeymoon. Julian arranged for them to stay the night at his Monaco penthouse, a place Sophia had visited a few times before. Though beautiful, it always felt more like a pristine showroom than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed sweeping views of the bay and harbor below. The decor was sleek, minimalist. Every curtain, light, and temperature setting controlled by a sophisticated smart system. It was stunning and sterile, a perfect metaphor, she thought, for a life built on surface perfection. When they arrived, Julian apologized again for the delay and offered to make dinner, an unusual gesture given his typically jam-packed schedule. It was a rare gesture given Julian's demanding schedule. Sophia tried to appreciate the effort, but her appetite was dulled by worry. As he moved quietly through the sleek modern kitchen, she wandered the living room restlessly, a growing sense of unease curling in her chest. There was something intangible in the air, as if someone else had recently been there. A faint floral scent lingered on one of the pillows. Was it just a room spray or something else? She sank onto the sofa and flipped through channels on the oversized television, but nothing held her interest. Her thoughts kept drifting, looping back to the same place. Eventually, Julian returned with a simple plate of pasta and a tall glass of sparkling water. Sophia forced a smile and accepted the food. Thank you. He sat beside her, his gaze gentler now, softened by the quiet of the room. I'm really sorry, Sophia, he said. I know how much you were looking forward to the Maldives. She exhaled shakily. I understand business is demanding. I just hope this doesn't become a pattern, Julian. Our relationship, our marriage has to come first, especially now with the baby. He reached across the cushion, placing a gentle hand on her stomach. I know, he murmured, and I promise I won't let you down. After tomorrow, everything will be perfect. She nodded, wanting desperately to believe him. They ate in silence for a while. The only sound was the low hum of traffic far below the penthouse windows. Then Julian's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. His face fell into a deep frown. Let me just step out for a moment, he said quietly, already beginning to rise. Sophia reached out, grabbing his wrist. Who is it? He hesitated, then sighed. It's Clarice again. Tears pricked her eyes before she could stop them. Julian, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep dropping everything to answer her calls. This is supposed to be our wedding night, part 2, I guess. Her voice broke. I can't keep watching you put her above me. His face contorted with guilt and frustration. I'm sorry. She's working with the overseas investors. It's time sensitive. I swear, I'm not running off. I'll be right in the hallway. Just a few minutes. That's all. Sophia slowly let go of his wrist, unable to say more. He slipped out of the room. She stared at her untouched dinner. Her stomach knotted. Her appetite had vanished. Silent tears slid down her cheeks as she sat motionless in the dim, elegant room. Later that night, Sophia awoke alone. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed 2:37 a.m. Julian wasn't beside her. The space where he should have been was cold to the touch. She sat up, worried. The city lights shimmered through the tall windows, casting eerie silver patterns on the walls. Slipping quietly out of bed, she padded down the hallway barefoot. Her voice a soft whisper. Julian. No response. The penthouse was silent save for the low hum of the air conditioning. Sophia moved from room to room, living area, kitchen, even the second bedroom. Nothing. No Julian. Anxiety twisted in her gut as she rushed toward the foyer, wondering if he had stepped out for something. An emergency errand. A late-night call. Anything. But then she noticed it. A narrow sliver of light glowing beneath the door of the home office. Her heart thudded painfully as she crept closer. Muffled voices spilled out Julian's, and a woman's, smooth, deliberate. Clarice. Sophia's breath caught. The air around her thickened, like the calm just before a lightning strike. How could Clarice be in the penthouse at nearly 3 a.m.? I told you not to come here, Julian said in a sharp, hushed tone, urgent, anxious. This is insane. Sophia's here. Sophia's stomach flipped. Her whole body screamed for her to turn around, to walk away from whatever horror might follow. But she stood frozen, her ear pressed to the door, her body trembling. Every word was a blade, every second a cut. Julian, Clarice's voice cooed, rich with a dangerous kind of intimacy. I had no choice. The investors are threatening to pull out if we don't. Enough about the investors, Julian hissed. We agreed that, after the wedding, you'd keep your distance. Clarice gave a short, bitter laugh. Don't pretend this is just business. You can't stay away from me. You married her, but you still call me at night. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth to silence the gasp that rose in her throat. Tears blurred her vision. Disbelief tangled with raw devastation. Her body rocked as if from an invisible impact. Her soul recoiled. She leaned closer to the door, breath shallow, her world unraveling one word at a time. Julian's voice dropped. Stop it, he said. But the words lacked the conviction Sophia needed to hear. It was a mistake. I was weak. Weak. The word echoed like a curse. A mistake. Clarice spat. That's not what you said when you were in my bed last week. Whispering about how trapped you felt. How the whole wedding was a performance. You told me you'd rather be with me. Sophia's lungs tightened as if the air had been snatched from the room. Her knees trembled, her body ready to collapse. She wanted to crash through the door, scream, rage, but she couldn't move. She was frozen in place, a statue of betrayal, the kind sculpted from shattered dreams. Julian sighed, resigned, defeated. That was before I realized what I'd lose if I left Sophia. My mother, my father, they made it clear they'd cut me off. She's pregnant. For God's sake. Did you expect me to walk away from my own child? Clarice laughed bitterly. So, you married her for the sake of your inheritance? How poetic. And I'm just supposed to stand by, watching your fairy tale wedding from the shadows, while I'm reduced to being the business associate behind closed doors. Clarice? Julian's voice cracked with desperation. You knew what this was. We agreed. His voice broke off, like a man realizing too late the cost of the lie he built. To end things, for now at least publicly. If I lose my father's support, it's not just me on the line. Clarice let out a scornful scoff, cutting Julian off. Spare me the excuses. I gave you everything, my time, my loyalty, my love. I believed we had a future. Her voice cracked slightly at the end. The war between bitterness and pain. Outside the door, Sophia's hand trembled on the knob. Fury twisted in her chest. Not just at Julian's betrayal or at Clarice's arrogance, but at the sheer weight of heartbreak. Crippling, suffocating heartbreak. Pressed down like a wave she couldn't outrun. Her pulse roared in her ears. Julian's voice softened. I'm sorry. I do care for you, but everything's complicated now. Clarice's voice oscillated between restrained rage and aching sorrow. You can't keep me hidden forever, Julian. Especially if the child might be. Don't you dare. Julian snapped, cutting her off. His voice turned sharp. Don't you dare say that. It's not possible. We were always careful. His panic was unmasked now, raw and cracking through his composure. Sophia went ice cold. Child? Clarice might be pregnant too? She couldn't listen to another word. Summoning the last shred of strength and powered by a surge of raw adrenaline, Sophia threw the office door open. The sound echoed. It split the room like thunder. Both Julian and Clarice turned, stunned, shock written across their faces. Sophia stood there, breath ragged, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her entire body trembled. She looked like a ghost haunting her own life. You lied to me? She choked out, voice shaking with rage and betrayal. You slept with her, while I was carrying your child. Julian stepped toward her, horrified. Sophia, it's not what you think. She recoiled from his outstretched hand. Her glare shifted to Clarice, who now leaned lazily against Julian's desk, arms crossed, exuding smug control. Her eyes, however, flickered with something deeper, satisfaction, and beneath that, triumph. Is that why you were at our wedding? Sophia snapped, her voice cracking. To watch your lover marry someone else? Clarice gave a small shrug, unapologetic. I had to make sure Julian knew I wasn't going to disappear quietly. Not after everything he promised me. Sophia's tears flowed harder now, but her anger surged like wildfire. Grief and fury braided into something electric. She turned back to Julian. You used me, she whispered. Was any of it real? The vows, the love, the baby you said you wanted. Julian's face twisted in anguish. Sophia, it started before you got pregnant. I never meant for it to go on. I ended it, I swear. But now she's blackmailing me. The investors, she's got leverage. I didn't know what else to do. His voice was frantic, pleading, like a man slipping underwater reaching for air. Clarice let out a cold, hollow laugh. Don't put this all on me, Julian. You weren't exactly reluctant. You wanted me every moment of it. Her words sliced through the air like knives. Sophia turned her glare on Julian again. Her voice cracked, brittle and broken. You told me you loved me. You made me believe we had a future, that you wanted a family with me. And all along, you were building one with someone else behind my back. I gave up everything to be with you, Sophia whispered through trembling sobs. My independence, my sense of security. I trusted you to protect me and our baby. Julian's face crumpled. I do love you, Sophia. I never meant to hurt you. Please just let me explain. We can fix this. Her shoulders shook violently as the heartbreak poured out of her. Fix this? she cried. How can we fix this, Julian? How can I ever look at you the same way? Clarice cast a cold, mocking glance between them. Perhaps you two need some privacy, she sneered, turning toward the door. But as she passed Sophia, she stopped. I'm not going anywhere, Mrs. Morrow. Your husband and I still have unfinished business. Sophia's hands curled into fists at her sides. For a moment, she almost struck her, but she clenched her jaw and turned away instead, letting the tears soak her cheeks in silence. Clarice walked out, heels clicking across the marble floor with a sound that felt like triumph. Julian started toward Sophia, but she stepped back quickly, her eyes blazing. Don't, she whispered. Don't come near me. His hands trembled. Sophia, please. I'm sorry. It was a mistake. You have to believe me. She's been manipulating me. Sophia let out a bitter laugh, even as the tears continued to fall. Oh, so now you're the victim? Unbelievable. She placed a trembling hand on her stomach, the full weight of her pregnancy crashing down on her like a wave of cold realization. I thought this was a real marriage, but you just needed me for your inheritance. Was it ever love, Julian? Or was I just convenient? Julian looked down, unable to meet her gaze. I did love you, he murmured, but I was scared. If I didn't marry someone my father approved of, he threatened to disown me. When you got pregnant, it became the perfect solution. I could keep the company and have a family. But then Clarice. Stop. Sophia cut him off, her voice cracking. I don't want to hear another word. She sucked in a shaky breath, trying to steady herself, her heart breaking open all over again. You say you love me, but your actions prove otherwise. He reached out to touch her, but she slapped his hand away. This is over, she hissed. I'm leaving. I won't be part of your twisted deception. I won't raise our child in this toxic mess. His eyes widened in panic. You can't just go. We're married. We can fix it. I'll end things with Clarice. I'll do whatever it takes. Sophia shook her head slowly, her tears splattering onto the polished floor. There's nothing left to fix, Julian. You made your choice long before we ever said, I do. And with that, she turned and walked out the door, leaving Julian standing alone in the ruins of his carefully crafted lies. Sophia fled the penthouse with no plan, only a desperate need to escape. She ignored Julian's voice echoing down the hallway, his footsteps following, his calls chasing after her. She jabbed at the elevator button again and again until the doors finally slid open. Once inside, she collapsed against the wall, tears spilling freely down her cheeks. Her mind spun with every devastating revelation, the affair, the possibility of another child, the layers of betrayal. The man she had married wasn't just unfaithful. He was a stranger wearing a mask she had once loved. She pressed a trembling hand to her belly, her heart aching as she whispered inside, He'll never be the father I dreamed for you. When the elevator reached the lobby, she hastily wiped away her tears, trying to compose herself. She marched through the marble foyer, ignoring the curious glances from the night staff. A uniformed doorman stepped forward, his brow furrowed with concern. Miss Bennett? Can I call you a car? She froze. That name, Miss Bennett, pierced her like a knife. That dream of being Mrs. Morrow had lasted less than a day. Yes, please, she said quietly, refusing to remain a moment longer in Julian's world. A black town car arrived swiftly. Sophia climbed into the back seat without hesitation. She gave the driver the name of a luxury hotel nearby, anywhere she could vanish into the quiet of the night and figure out her next move. She needed time to think, to cry, to plan. As the car glided through the sleeping city, she gazed out at the shimmering skyline of Monaco, the harbor lights sparkling like stars fallen to earth. The city, once full of promise and luxury, now felt cold and alien. It was no longer home. She would leave as soon as she could arrange the logistics. At the hotel, she checked in under her maiden name, Bennett, not wanting to be recognized or associated with the Morrow name. Thankfully, the receptionist didn't ask questions. Once in her suite, Sophia collapsed on the bed and sobbed until her body felt drained and hollow. She cupped her belly with shaking hands. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to the child within. "I wanted to give you a happy family, a real one." The tears came again, raw and relentless. Hours later, morning light filtered faintly through the curtains. She woke with swollen eyes and a pounding heart. Her phone showed dozens of missed calls and unread messages from Julian. She deleted them all without looking, then turned off the phone completely. In the bathroom mirror, a pale, shaken woman stared back at her. But beneath the fatigue and heartbreak, she saw something else: a spark, a flicker of who she used to be. The woman she once was, strong, independent. She needed that strength now more than ever. A slow, steady breath rose in her chest. She would not let Julian's betrayal define her. She would not remain a victim. She would walk away, just as she had said, and she would start a new life for herself and her baby. Over the next few days, Sophia quietly slipped out of Monaco, boarding a last-minute flight to her hometown of Seattle, where her parents still lived in the cozy little house she'd grown up in. She hadn't told them much, just that she needed to come home for a visit. She couldn't bear to say more, not until she was face to face with them. She left behind the designer heels and tailored dresses Julian had bought for her, choosing instead a worn hoodie and jeans. She wore a baseball cap to stay under the radar, though she doubted the press had caught wind of what had happened yet. But she knew it was only a matter of time before headlines turned her grief into gossip. Eventually, the scandal would break, but for now, she was anonymous enough to move quietly through the world. The flight to Seattle felt endless. Every second was a slow burn of memories, Julian's confession echoing in her mind, his lies poisoning every moment they had shared. She wanted to hate him, but her heart ached with longing for the man she had thought he was. The illusion hurt more than the betrayal. And then there was Clarice, the woman who had waltzed into their wedding uninvited, unapologetic, and possibly carrying his child. The betrayal was too vast, too heavy to carry. It hollowed her from the inside out. When she landed, her father, Robert Bennett, was waiting at the terminal with open arms and a warm smile. He pulled her into a tight hug. "There's my girl," he said, then paused, confused. "Where's Julian? And where's your luggage?" Sophia swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. "Dad, can we talk at home?" Concern flickered in his eyes. "Of course, sweetheart." The car ride back to the house was quiet, punctuated only by her father's soft attempts to ask if she was okay. She just shook her head and whispered, "I need time," and he respected that, like fathers do. When they arrived, her mother, Claudine, rushed out the front door, arms already outstretched. "Sophia, my beautiful bride, I thought you were off honeymooning in paradise. What happened?" Sophia collapsed into her mother's embrace, sobbing uncontrollably. The pain spilled from her in waves she couldn't hold back. Every breath was a break, every sob a release. Over the next hour, wrapped in a blanket, surrounded by the scent of home, with hot tea and a box of tissues between them, she told her parents everything, every single detail. Claudine listened, hand clutching Sophia's trembling fingers, tears glistening in her own eyes. Robert stood suddenly and began pacing, his jaw clenched tight, fury radiating from every step. "That man lied to you," he growled. "This can't stand." His voice trembled with the anger of a father who couldn't protect his daughter from the kind of pain no parent ever wants to witness. Claudine turned to him quickly. "Please, Robert, stay calm for Sophia's sake." Her eyes returned to her daughter, filled with compassion and quiet heartbreak. "Oh, my poor darling," she whispered gently, brushing Sophia's hair back. "I'm so sorry." Sophia sniffled, her voice barely audible. "Me too." But in that moment, buried in her mother's arms, she finally felt the first flicker of something she thought she'd lost. Safety. I feel like such a fool," Sophia whispered, curling deeper into the couch. "I believed everything he said. But maybe I should have seen the signs." Her voice cracked on the last word, as if even speaking it confirmed the betrayal all over again. Claudine shook her head firmly. "Don't you dare blame yourself. This is his deception. not your naivete. Her tone was steel wrapped in silk. Sophia felt emotionally drained but also relieved. The burden of silence had lifted now that her parents knew. She lay still, her head resting in her mother's lap while Claudine gently stroked her hair. "I just need time to figure out what to do next," Sophia murmured. "I want a divorce, but I'm not even sure how complicated that'll be." We were married for barely a moment. Robert turned from where he'd been pacing across the living room. "I'll make some calls," he said, his voice steely with resolve. "We'll find the best lawyer out there. You're not alone in this, Sophia. We'll make sure you and the baby are protected." There was no hesitation, no doubt, only the fury of a father reclaiming his daughter's dignity. Her eyes filled again with tears. She closed them tightly, a few slipping down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. Gratitude swelled in her chest for the unwavering love surrounding her. Days turned into weeks. Sophia ignored Julian's every attempt to reach her. Emails flooded her inbox. Pleas for forgiveness, declarations that Clarice meant nothing, that he had been manipulated. Voicemails stacked up with his voice breaking, begging for another chance. He even flew to Seattle, but Sophia refused to see him because deep down, she knew that love without truth was a prison, and she refused to be locked inside it again. She knew if she saw his face again, she might fall apart all over again. Instead, she poured her attention into her pregnancy. She visited her old OB-GYN, who confirmed the baby was healthy, though the emotional stress Sophia carried was concerning. Claudine attended every appointment, holding her daughter's hand, offering gentle encouragement and strength. She never let go even when Sophia did. Meanwhile, Robert retained Catherine Winston, a high-profile divorce attorney known for navigating complex and scandalous separations. After reviewing the situation, Catherine was confident the short duration of the marriage and the nature of Julian's betrayal gave Sophia a strong case. She could file for an annulment or pursue divorce, whichever would bring the most protection and peace. The legal battle ahead promised to be emotionally draining, but Sophia no longer felt powerless. She had people in her corner, and she had her child to fight for. She wasn't just leaving a marriage. She was reclaiming her future. One chilly afternoon, Sophia stood on her parents' porch, wrapped in a thick sweater, sipping hot cocoa. The clouds hung low over the Seattle sky. Everything felt heavy, still, like a world paused before the next storm. That's when she saw it. A black luxury sedan pulling up outside. Her heart thudded. Julian. He stepped out slowly, disheveled in a way she had never seen. His usually perfect hair was uncombed, his suit wrinkled, his eyes sunken with dark circles. He looked up and their eyes met. Relief spread across his face, a spark of hope, one she no longer shared. Sophia's arms folded instinctively over her belly, her stance guarded, her jaw tight. Julian approached the white picket fence cautiously, not daring to cross it. "Sophia, please," he said, his voice strained. "I just want to talk." She didn't move. Her fingers tightened around the porch railing. "Leave, Julian," she said evenly. "I have nothing to say to you." He looked like a shell of the man he once was, broken, regretful. But she had no space left for his sorrow, not after drowning in her own. "I did a terrible thing," he said quietly. "I know you hate me," Julian said, standing just beyond the gate. "But I need you to know I've ended it with Clarice for good." He looked like a man unraveling. "She was blackmailing me over some shady business dealings," he continued. "But I've come clean. I told my father. I told our board. They're handling it now. She can't hurt us anymore." Sophia's heart twisted. "You still don't get it," she said, her voice sharp with pain. "This isn't just about blackmail. You cheated on me. You betrayed me, my trust, my love." He swallowed hard. "I know, and I'll never be able to undo that. But please, let me prove I'm committed to you, to our baby. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll sign anything, give you anything. Just give me another chance." Her voice trembled, tight with fury. "You think you can buy me off? Like that's going to erase what you did?" She blinked back fresh tears. "You slept with someone else while I was carrying your child. No, Julian said quickly, shaking his head. It's not like that. I love you, Sophia, I do. I was a coward. I was terrified of losing everything, my inheritance, my place in the family. But now I realize how meaningless it all is without you. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. Sophia stared at him, her lips quivering. A part of her, small, buried deep, wanted to believe him, to collapse into his arms and pretend it could be okay. But the memories of Clarice's mocking tone, the lies, the betrayal, they were too real. Julian, she said softly. You made your bed, now lie in it. I'm filing for divorce. His face crumpled. I never want to see you again. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to give this to you on our honeymoon, he said, opening it to reveal a delicate diamond necklace. It belonged to my grandmother. I wanted you to have it, a symbol of my commitment. Sophia's breath caught. Her lips trembled. Stop, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't want your jewelry or your apologies. Julian nodded slowly. Tears welled in his eyes. All right, he whispered. If that's what you really want. She forced herself to stay still, to remain cold, even as her chest burned. Leave, Julian. Don't come back. Tears traced down his cheeks as he turned, shoulders slumped, and walked away without another word. Sophia stumbled back into the house, heart pounding. The moment she shut the door, her legs gave out, and she collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Claudine rushed to her side, wrapping her arms around her daughter. In the weeks that followed, Sophia worked closely with Catherine Winston. Catherine worked diligently to finalize the divorce proceedings. Julian's lawyers attempted to negotiate, offering generous financial settlements and property arrangements, but Sophia wanted none of it. She didn't want to be tied to him or to his fortune. What she demanded was simple: primary custody of the child, minimal financial support, and a swift, clean break. Surprisingly, Julian didn't fight her. He agreed to everything. Word soon reached Sophia that Clarice's blackmail scheme had erupted into a public scandal, sending shock waves through the Moro Empire. Julian's father, Lucian, was livid but stood by his son publicly, quietly paying off certain parties to contain the damage. Clarice disappeared from the public eye. Rumors swirled that she was pregnant, but Sophia didn't want to know. It was no longer her concern. Within weeks of what had been her fairy tale wedding, Sophia Bennett reclaimed her maiden name. The marriage was dissolved. She felt both profound relief and aching sorrow. Relief for her freedom. Freedom from lies, betrayal, and manipulation, but sorrow for the dream that had died, for the love she once believed in. Despite the heartbreak, Sophia found a new sense of purpose. She chose to stay in Seattle, close to the people who loved her, surrounded by the quiet strength of her family. She prepared to raise her child in a place that felt like home. She applied for a remote position at a nonprofit she admired, an organization focused on women's health, and got the job. It gave her independence, stability, and meaning. She was determined to build a life where her child would be safe, cherished, and far from the toxic legacy of the Moros. One bright afternoon, she visited a quiet beach on Puget Sound. Standing at the shoreline, watching the still water ripple under soft sunlight, she rested a hand on her growing belly. We're going to be okay, she whispered. I promise. I'll give you all the love you need. A calm, quiet hope washed over her. It was the promise of a new beginning. Months passed, and Sophia was flourishing. She had moved into a cozy apartment in downtown Seattle, not far from her parents. She decorated it with soft colors and gentle touches, light, airy curtains, fresh flowers, and calming art. She learned how to manage her anxiety, focused on the present, took joy in the small things. The tabloids had moved on, chasing new scandals, and for the most part, the world left her in peace. Julian sent occasional messages, gentle, careful check-ins about the baby. Sophia never replied, but she read them. There was sincerity in his words, regret, maybe even redemption. But the razor-sharp sting of betrayal was gone. That chapter had closed. She was no longer his wife. She was a mother now, On a stormy November evening, Sophia's water broke. Robert and Claudine rushed her to the hospital, where she labored through the night, rain tapping softly against the windows. As dawn broke, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. He had her eyes dark, curious, and a soft tuft of hair. Cradling him against her chest, holding him in her arms, tears of love and relief streamed down Sophia's cheeks. She named him Oliver Bennett, honoring her family's name and legacy. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming surge of devotion. This tiny, perfect life in her arms wasn't just her son. He was her new beginning, her reason, her future. She vowed then and there to protect him from the harshness of the world, to raise him with truth, with tenderness, and with courage, to give him everything she had once dreamed of, and never let him grow up in a house where love was a mask for betrayal. She didn't tell Julian about Oliver's birth, not right away. Only a week later, once her heart had steadied, did she send a simple message. Your son arrived safely. His name is Oliver. He's healthy and beautiful. Attached was a single photo. Oliver nestled in her arms, asleep against her chest. Then she turned off her phone and returned her full attention to the only thing that mattered now. The baby cradled against her heart, the only person whose love was pure, unquestioning, and eternal. No matter what storms might lie ahead, Sophia knew she had the strength to endure them. She had walked away from betrayal on the very night that was supposed to be the most magical of her life and emerged stronger, more resilient, more certain of who she was and what she deserved. And this time she wasn't walking alone. Yes, her wedding night had been a nightmare, but from it came something deeper, something lasting. The unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. A love that no lie could touch and no loss could undo. Dear friend, thank you for joining me on this roller coaster of love, betrayal, and ultimate resilience. Sophia Bennett's story is more than a tale of heartbreak. It's a mirror for so many of us who've trusted deeply, fallen hard, and still found the strength to stand back up. Her journey reminds us of something the Stoics have long taught. We may not control what happens to us, but we always control how we rise from it. She could have let bitterness define her. She could have stayed trapped in silence. But instead, Sophia walked away from the ashes of betrayal and chose something far more powerful. Self-respect, inner strength, and the pure love of a mother for her child. She refused to settle for lies, for manipulation, or for a life written by someone else's choices. And in doing so, she became something unbreakable. Because sometimes the hardest endings become the first lines of the strongest beginnings. And maybe that's what you need to hear today, that even if your world feels shattered, you still have the power to rebuild, to begin again, not as the same person, but as someone wiser, braver, and more rooted in who you really are. If Sophia's journey moved you, I hope you'll carry her strength with you wherever you are in your own story. And if you know someone who needs hope right now, share this video with them. Don't forget to like it if it touched your heart. And if you'd like to hear more powerful, emotional stories just like this one, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you with us. From my heart to yours, thank you for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourself. You are stronger than you know.